session, I wanted to discuss with you this theme, reinventing crimes, endangering national security and public order. I will not deal with it on my subject. Let me look at again under this terrorism, extremism, and sedition. These are broadly categorized, these two types of offenses, terrorism and extremism, sedition and treason. These two are broadly categorized as a political crime. Have you ever seen any meaning of a political crime? Is there anything called as a political crime? Because Indian Penal Code, along with the special legislations, right, starting from National Security Act, several of these preventive detention legislations, whether the old TADA, MOTA, now the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, several of these special legislations. So, first is, what is a political crime? Is there something called as a political crime? Is there any meaning or any definition? Crime suna hai? Political crime. Anyone? Any case? Okay. Let me look at okay, we will look at whether it is a political crime. I wanted to take you to three things. First is, I think Austin III, 1982, he said book on political criminality, defiance and defense of authority. Austin III is a critical criminologist who attempted to define and explain a framework of what is a political crime, what is political criminality. If an individual commits a crime, we have the whole system, criminal justice system. Okay? If an agency of a state, police, security, anyone who has been empowered with the legal duty to protect, maintain law and order, if they commit a crime, do we have a system in place of protecting them? Let me first explain about what Austin III mentions about that. Then I'll take you through to three important cases. I think first time this issue came before, this again a case came from Andhra Pradesh High Court before the Supreme Court. Justice Krishna here, 1976 Supreme Court. Okay. That's the first time this issue was raised. Then 2011 Nandini Sundar case. Then I take you very interesting 2012 West Bengal High Court case. At some level, they dealt with what is a crime, what is a political crime, what is a case to case. Then we will come back to, after this framework, then we will come back to this, how do we understand this terrorism and sedition, rather what is an emerging jurisprudence. Austin III case, he says, political criminality becomes a socially perceived and defined reality produced by conflict between authorities and those who resist the authorities. Political crime is something where state has a bounden duty to maintain law and order, protect the sovereignty, integrity of the nation, particularly to prevent commission of the crime to state and several agencies of the state. Then you have some people, they oppose the state, whether you call that state. We will not categorize terrorism under this. Okay, terrorism is a bit different. But we will look at how many of you have looked at the definition of terrorist activity, disruptive activity under the old TADA, POTA and Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And the teachers of criminal law should know that. We will come back to that. Terrorism, extremism, and how the courts are. So primarily, this is what Austin Turk, which clearly says that this is produced by a conflict between a state and somebody opposes the state. Opposes the state not as an ordinary criminal. Whether we accept, we may not accept, they say we have a political ideology. Whether now they are called as Maoists, or they are named Naxalites, or maybe some other left-wing extremism. So this is this tension between these. When it's a state, somebody says, I have committed a crime, I have committed a murder. That is in the case came before the Justice Krishna here in the Supreme Court in 1976. I have committed a murder. Who is a notorious landlord, who is known for his exploitation. That time they were caught as a strike party. Let's say Communist Party of India, Marxist. Yes. You should know as a teacher, as we said in the preceding session, you should know about human psychology, you should know about the body, you should know the entire emotion, injuries, everything as a criminal. Again, you should have a basic political knowledge. When you teach of all of this, you should know basic Indian political system, political parties. Before you take a stand, you should have your own stand, ideological viewpoint against any movement, old movement, new social movements, and a political extremist movement, radical left. So, if you look back to this history, we all know about Congress party. Okay, then we have Bharatiya Janata Party, which is came to power. Similarly, you have a few groups of these individuals and institutions. They call themselves the leftists. Communist Party of India, Communist Party of Marxists, then Communist Party of Marxists, and several other things. But you should have a basic understanding. I think Nandini Sundar case tries to prove it. So what Austin Turk says is, this is the conflict between a state and those who oppose the state. They oppose the state based on a political idea, where they believe that you have to establish an egalitarian society, where there is no caste, there is no race, there is no religion, there is equalitarian society, and the means of production, everything should be equal. So this is what they believe in the Marxists, Leninists, Maoist thought, and they practice. Whenever they commit a crime with a specific. They have no individual enmity, they have no greed, there is no money is involved, there is no personal enmity. But a political ideology with that, they say this Krishna Gaud Bomaya is the first case which came before Andhra Pradesh. These are the two activists of the Naxalites party in Andhra Pradesh. They went and killed in a tribal districts in Andhra Pradesh, Adilabad districts. They killed a notorious landlord, Krishna Gaud and Bomaya. KRISHTA-GOUD and Bomaya, BHOOMAIAH versus State of Andhra Pradesh, 1976, 1 SCC 157. So these two have committed a murder. They went with a procession, went into the landlord's house, brought him and killed in presence of a huge number of their political supporters in the village. They were arrested. Yes, we have killed them. And they have been awarded a death sentence. Andhra Pradesh High Court they went. And first time this issue, I think Justice Chinnappa Reddy was in the Andhra Pradesh High Court at the time, they raised that. What is their argument is, yes, we have committed a murder, but this is not a conventional murder. This is a political murder. We believe in a political ideology. We have nothing against this particular landlord. We have no personal enmity. Then appeal came before the Supreme Court. Look at what Justice Krishna Iyer says, that they have been awarded a death penalty, they have been hanged. In fact, in India, the first campaign against death penalty in India started with Krishna Gaur and Bhumaya. We were just very young students in Andhra Pradesh, where we were all, first time we have heard, we went to the courts in Andhra Pradesh High Court, went to the prison, we tried to move, went to the governor, tried to prevent his execution. Now the Indian Supreme Court is moving towards a progressive abolition of death penalty, but this was the time in 1976. That was the dark or a bright days of emergency. Okay, so you look at, that was the time this case came before the Supreme Court. Justice Krishna Iyer, what he says, the petitioner held to be murderers by the court and sentenced to death. Having regard to the blood-curdling ruthlessness of the guilt, crossed over from the jurisdictions of the court to the clemency zone of the president under Article 72. The last chance to live appeal for mercy by man who mercilessly killed, allegedly driven by the humanist urge for catalyzing social justice through terrorist technology, found no compassionate response. Here Krishna Iyer says, the advocate, defense counsel on behalf of Bhumaya and Krishna Gaur, they raised two socio-legal basic questions. That is very important for us. What the defense counsel said before the Supreme Court, a politically motivated offense committed by the two frustrated men who were disenchanted by the die-hard injustice of massive suffering and suppression, to shock and shake the custodians of the status quo, stands on a separate footing from the common run of crimes, and the root of humanity of their ruthlessness, inhumanity, impertinence was blindly brushed aside by the president. The defense counsel said, Bhumaya Krishna Gaur have committed a crime which is not an ordinary crime like a murder in the Indian penal code. It is a political crime. They believed in a particular political ideology, and they went and killed him, and this is what. So therefore, you should provide a clemency and don't award the death penalty. This is the first case in India which raised this issue of political crime. Keep in mind. Second is a Nandini Sundar case 2011. Anyone else would have read this case? Some of you have read. What is the case? Anybody tell?
It was in the context of Sandavigan issue that this
is a very interesting case. Justice Sudarshan Reddy who wrote a judgment, because again we need to look at, whenever you read the judgment, look at the background of the judge. He is a former socialist. Okay, so you could see that his own, everybody carries a political value. Nobody is apolitical. Okay, everybody, our thinking, our writing, our teaching. But as a teacher, you should explain all perspective and you should have your own perspective. So look at in your materials, State of Chhattisgarh versus Nandini Sundar, 246 to 287. Justice Sudarshan Reddy, who was an old farmer socialist. You could see, if you read the judgment, first 22 paras, is a remarkable, he explains about development process in India. What is a paradigm shift? What is development? Who are these people called as an expert? Okay, so brief facts are mentioned in 29, para 29. Let me just take you to that and then we will come back to the Nandini Sundar case. The instant writ petition was filed in 2007 by Nandini Sundar, Professor of Sociology in Delhi School of Economics, and the author of Subalterns and Sovereign, an anthropological history of Bastar, second edition 2007. Dr. Ramchandra Guha, very noted historian and author of several books. Third is Mr. E.A. Sharma, former secretary, IAS, former secretary to the Government of India, former Tribal Welfare Commissioner of Government of Andhra Pradesh, very highly respected senior civil servants in India. What they have said is, they said that there is a widespread violation of human rights in the Dantewada district in the state of Chhattisgarh, which is the Naxalites, they proclaim that as a liberated area. They think that in Dantewada only the rule of Naxalites are now the new name of Maoists will run. So this is what. But they said there is a widespread violation of human rights violations. On account of the ongoing armed Maoist Naxalite insurgency and the counter-insurgency offensive launched by the government of Chhattisgarh. In this regard, these three people have alleged that state of Chhattisgarh was actively promoting activities of a group to counter Naxalites. They have developed a new paramilitary force, social vigilante group. This is called as the Salva Judum. Salva Judum is an armed civilian vigilante group, and they wanted to counter the Naxalites through this Special Police Protection Group, SPG. They're all just ordinary tribals, no training, nothing. They were just thrown into the death. You go and fight. And the state of Chhattisgarh is promoting and providing and training and doing all this without any law and a basic procedure, training, everything is in place. Okay. So then the Supreme Court also requested the NHRC to verify the allegations. NHRC also has submitted. So this is how there are about 300 special police officers. These are all called as Salva tribal who fight against, and they are providing arms, ammunition, money, and everything. And this is the time the Supreme Court also noticed all the schools have been closed in the Dantewada. Schools, playgrounds, everything has been occupied by army and paramilitary. So this is how this case, Nandini Sundar case, came before the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court said this is a part of the dehumanization of these young tribals. Okay. And look at the para 8 of the judgment, where Justice Sudarshan Reddy explains about this, what is the root cause of the problem of Naxalism? Is it lack of development? Displacement? So he says the violent agitator politics and armed rebellion in many pockets of India have intimate linkages to socio-economic circumstances, endemic inequalities, and a corrupt social and state order that preys on such inequalities has been well recognized. And he also gives an example of the Planning Commission of India report on development challenge in extremist affected areas. So he says this issue has to be dealt separately, not accepting or approving the violence methodology which is adopted by the Naxalites in these areas. So ultimately the issue came before the Supreme Court in Nandini Sundar is challenging the constitutionality of this SPO, Special Protection Officer, and how they have been, the state police is using them as against the Naxalites. So this is whole in the second issue of the political crime, understanding the left-wing extremism. The Supreme Court attempted to explain this, and they they have given a series of orders. They have asked the state of Chhattisgarh first to stop recruiting, and they have said they have also asked the CBI to conduct an investigation into all this, and they said this is illegal. The state engaging a special protection officers to fight against Naxalism. So this is the second case of where we see political crime the Supreme Court attempted to explain. You can read further. Third is a very interesting case of West Bengal. This is really remarkable. They quote, in fact, we could see this is influenced by the Nandini Sundar judgment. There were 3 criminal revisional petitions which came before the West Bengal High Court. 8/8/2012. They start with what are political offences? Who are political prisoners? In fact, these are the 3 criminal revisional petitions. There's no, I think it's not reported, but I'll mail you this. These are the 3 criminal revision petitions. Again, this is during that time. There's a widespread Naxalite activity in West Bengal. Okay. Lalgarh, all this area. If you look at the history of the left-wing extremism in India, as a teacher you should know, it started from the West Bengal. Charu Majumdar, who was started, in fact, this time, at one point of time, the media report says that Presidency College in Calcutta is full of hardcore extremists. And they were part of this. The Naxalite movement in India started from West Bengal, started by Charu Majumdar, Kanu Sanyal, and other people from West Bengal. Okay. So you could see in 2000 again, for some time there was a hardcore. Several of these people have been killed, encountered deaths, and you could see that was resulted in this. If you look at the human rights movement in India, first started, whether it is the People's Union for Civil Liberties, whether the Andhra Pradesh Civil Liberties Committee or the Committee for Protection of Democratic Rights in Maharashtra or the Association of Protection of Democratic Rights in West Bengal, People's Union for Democratic Rights, all these during the emergency, before the emergency, started with a single agenda. If an individual commits a crime, there are several people. But if a state commits a crime, there is no institution which will take care. That is what the civil liberties movement in India started, and you see various pockets in India. They try to provide defense to these people. That's how this case, the West Bengal High Court is a 3 criminal revision petition. They have been arrested under the Tada, Pota, and they're all belongs to the Maoist party and the Naxalite party. What they said is when they were arrested, they have been put under the unlawful activities, several of these Arms Act and others. Their contention is we are political prisoners. You know, if you look at any prison manual, see whether prison act or a prison manual defines political prisoner. We have freedom movement, so that is what first we know about a political prisoner status. Gandhiji, Nehru, all the first generation, those who have fought against the British, they were all political prisoners. They went to that. Later they started getting there were several other people also. So the term political prisoner makes a distinction between an ordinary prisoner. They get some privileges in the prison. So these 3 criminal petitions question this, that we are political prisoners, should recognize and protect. And Calcutta High Court started with this question: what are political offences? Who are political prisoners? What is the role of political violence for achieving the political goal professed by its believers? What is the treatment which states should administer to those who use political violence activities to terrorize others for achievement of their objectives? What is the state of affairs in prison? These are the 3 writ petitions. They claim themselves to be Maoists, and they said they should be declared as a political prisoners, treated as political prisoners within the meaning of, very interesting. I don't know, we need to now check up whether other state prison acts have this provision. Section 24 of the Correctional Services Act, very interesting. These are some of these interactions I am thankful to Professor Pandey and others. This will make us to read and look at, otherwise sometimes we will not read. Okay. So this very interesting section 24 of the Correctional Services Act of West Bengal Prison Manual. This defines what is a political. Very interesting. If you fall under this, you are a political. So we have to see whether this similar is. So what is a political offence? They explain about all this, but primarily a sketchy they say, the West Bengal High Court. The sketchy way is it's sufficient to say that politics are about government, and therefore a political offence is one committed with the object of changing the government of a state or inducing a change in the policy. So therefore, those who commit political offences are political prisoners. But they look at what is the municipal, you look at international law, you have extradition, which clearly mentions about extradition is offences of a political character. Okay. But this section 24, West Bengal Correctional Services Act 1992, it's not the Prison Act of Prison Matters. The West Bengal Correctional Services Act 1992 received the assent of the President in 13 June 1997, came into force from 3rd April 2000. This defines. Let me just read this. Three types of categories of political offences. 243(4) of the Act. Any person arrested or convicted on a charge of having committed or attempting to commit or aiding or abetting the commission of any political offence, whether or not the constituting such offence comes within the purview of any offence punishable under the IPC or any other law for the time being in force, and any person believed to have been prosecuted out of political animosity shall be classified as a political prisoner. Then explanation. For the purposes of this, again they say they define political and democratic movement. I must appreciate the legislators for bringing these two together. And they make a distinction between what is a political movement, what is a democratic movement. They say any offence committed or alleged to have been committed in furtherance of any political or democratic movement, or any offence arising out of an act done by an individual with an exclusive political objective, free from personal greed or motive, shall be a political offence. Then they will say, again, the category. A person charged under section 302 or section 379 or section 395 or section 411 of the IPC may be classified as a political prisoner if this case satisfies the requirement of this clause. Then there is a political motive, there is no greed, there is no other. Okay. Then B, any movement or public agitation sponsored or carried on by a political party or group of persons in furtherance of any political ideology or for securing, safeguarding any political right, fighting any injustice of political nature, they will be termed as a political movement. Second, C, any movement, this is a democratic movement they are defining. Any movement or public agitation sponsored or carried out by any political party, any group of association, securing common good for the people, for securing and safeguarding well-recognized human rights in the field of social reform, securing remedy of any injustice done to any individual or body of individuals shall be interpreted as a democratic movement. Once they define what is a political crime, then they have defined what is a political movement. Then the third they said about democratic movement. Then they will come removal of the doubt. Everything is a political movement or a democratic movement. To remove the doubts, class D of this 243, which mentions about that removal of doubt is declared that trade union activities and collective activities sponsored or carried on for securing justice and well-being of the working class, and collective activities safeguarding the interests of land, betterment of the condition, deemed to be a democratic movement, provided that that movement or a public education by any communal, regional, linguistic, religious, racial, sectional, or caste group sponsored or carried on against any other like group shall not be deemed to be a political or democratic movement. It is again an exception, which is a democratic movement, which is a political movement, which is a political crime. If this is done by the by a regional, linguistic, religious, racial, anything carried out against any other group shall not be a political or democratic movement. If it is on the religious lines, communal lines, racial lines, caste consideration, or promoting any interest other than the social economic interest by any religion. With this, the West Bengal High Court says a person is classified as a political prisoner because if they fall under A, B, C, not the D, which is of a different nature. So therefore, they said that while interpreting this section 24, all the three criminal revision sections, the petitioner, those who are called the case, they are declared as a political prisoner. A person classified as a political prisoner is entitled to few amenities, which includes provision of chair, table, and other basic thing along with his books, periodicals, electrical fan, and table lamp. So this is what the West Bengal High Court tried to further extend and explain the political crime, political movement, and democracy. So I thought I'll just explain to you some of these. I'll just close with two issues. If you have a chance, look at the old TADA POTA and the new Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. What exactly? Who is a terrorist? Such a vast, vague, ambiguous. And then read, come back to the Akshardham section. Then you can understand. Look at that. I think what is a terrorist act? Who is a terrorist? Terrorist organization. Punishment for terrorist activity. Terrorist act. Read section 15. Okay? And what is disruptive activities they have taken, which was used to exist earlier in the old TADA and the POTA. Okay? So look at, then you will understand the political nature. I will just leave with the issue of the sedition, what we have seen again that was coming, if you have read about the Vinayak Singh case, and he's again a doctor who is working in the tribal areas of Chhattisgarh, and he has been arrested, particularly stating that there is no evidence to clearly prove that he belongs to the Maoist party, and there were some letters which have been procured from one of the person in that area, which only points out that he used to meet, but there is no substantial evidence. We have seen all over India there was a huge campaign to meet Vinayak Singh, and so these are all how some of these offences which may not necessarily to be existed in the contemporary penal code. The terrorism definitely will be there, but how do we understand? You have to make a distinction between a terrorist activity and an extremism. If you read Nandini Sundar, you will try to get some of these. Sedition is, I think, there is no place in the modern Indian. So with this, I will have no questions.